Welcome to On My Way to Wealth, the podcast where busy Gen Xers can learn financial tips as they navigate life on their way to wealth. And now, please join your host, Luis Rosa.
This episode is brought to you by Latin Excellence. Visit latinexcellence.com. That's Latinx, CELLENCE.com or latinxmovement.com to learn more and shop our merchandise. You are excellence. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of On My Way to Wealth. My name is Luis, and I'm your host. I want to talk to you today about point of sale financing. This is something that has been increasing in popularity. A lot of people are using it. There are some benefits to it. I also want to talk to you about some of the things to be on the lookout for. Before I tell you about the pros and the cons, let me first tell you what it is. So point of sale financing, you might have noticed now, whenever you go to an online retail store, you might notice an option to buy now, pay later. And, that could be very appealing. Sometimes you see where it actually says there's no interest on it if you pay it back within a certain amount of time, 0% APR. So it's very appealing for people to do. But I want to tell you a little bit about how it works, just so that you make an informed decision, because getting into these types of things has some pros and some cons. And before I get into that, I want to tell you just a little story about how when I was growing up, there was something called layaway, where basically you went into a store, you saw an item that you liked. Typically, it was a big ticket item. I remember it was a mattress or couch or furniture, and you would put a down payment on it, right? Some sort of deposit, and the store would then allow you to make payments over time, but you didn't get the item until you were actually done making the payments, So you kind of put it on layaway, go there, make payments, and then eventually, once you paid it off, then you get to take it with you. So that was kind of interesting, So now when I see these point of sale loans, it's similar, but the difference is that you actually get the item right away. And this could be dangerous because it makes it a lot easier to just buy for stuff without having the money up front, right? And we're going to get into as to how that could be dangerous in and of itself. So in a nutshell, point of sale financing is those things that you see now all over the place, where right before you check out, it says, hey, you can buy now, pay later. Just pay it in 3 easy installments, 0% APR, which is very appealing. Now, before you apply for these, there are certain things I want you to take into consideration. Now, are they good? They can be, right? They make it flexible. So if you don't have all the money up front, you can just easily get one of these buy now, pay later things and pay it over time, right? Maybe you're expecting some money later that you don't have right now, so you can just make some easy small installments and then pay it off when you get the money, right? So it provides you some flexibility. Another thing that it could be good for, these companies sometimes are not as stringent with the credit. So if you don't have established credit, maybe you haven't been able to get a credit card or something like that, or your credit cards are very high interest rate, this might be a good alternative for you as well. You might be able to just establish some credit as a result of doing this, but keep in mind that these are considered short-term loans and they can have an impact on your credit. A lot of them require what's called a hard inquiry on your credit report. Some don't, but this is something that you need to find out. Before you apply, you want to know, is this company going to do a hard inquiry or a soft inquiry? And what those are is a hard inquiry is something that stays on your credit report that shows up as you haven't inquired for credit. So if you do lots of those, it may have a negative impact on your score, because then it shows to the system that you're kind of desperate for credit, just applying for things all over the place, right? So you don't want to have too many hard inquiries unnecessarily. So this is one of the things you want to know. They might say, hey, this is a soft inquiry. And if it is, it's great, because then a soft inquiry says it's the equivalent of you checking your own credit, for example. And it does not have any negative impact on your credit. So the first thing you want to know is this company doing a hard or a soft inquiry on my credit? Because then you want to determine what type of impact that may or may not have. The reason I bring this up is because a hard inquiry in and of itself might not have a negative impact on you, right? Especially when you're shopping around for things. If you think about it, you're shopping around for a mortgage, or you're trying to refinance your student loans or a car, you may have 2 to 3 inquiries, and that's okay generally, right? But what happens is with these types of loans, they have become so easy to obtain people don't realize that you're actually applying for credit each and every single time that you're doing this. So if you go and you're trying to shop for 4 different things online and they're all buy now, pay later, and you go and do it, well, all of a sudden you may end up with 4 inquiries on your credit report. That doesn't look good. It actually may end up hurting you because it looks like you're overextending yourself. And speaking of which, this is another possible downside is because it's so easy to obtain and the payments may not be as high as buying the thing up front, you may tend to overspend, and that has been shown in the rate of growth in popularity and dollars that these loans have been having, especially during the pandemic. People were staying home and a lot of people were just buying online, so they've gained a lot of popularity. So be careful with that because you may easily find yourself buying more than, like they say, biting more than you can chew, right? Which is the equivalent in this case, just buying too much stuff that you're actually not able to pay back. So you want to be careful with overextending yourself. Second thing to look out for is the monthly payment. How comfortable is it? Obviously, if you're buying something over a 10-month period, it's a lot easier than coming up with the cash up front. But it depends on the purchase. You may have done an impulse purchase where you purchase a sweater, a pair of shoes. You may not want to be paying for a sweater or a pair of shoes for 3-4 months down the line. Maybe something big like a mattress you might be okay with, but you might guess, you just might regret the purchase. Turns out you might not need it, right? Which brings me to the next point, which is returns. If you decide to return the item, you want to read the fine print ahead of time from getting this loan because depending on what the return policy is, you may actually end up still paying for something. They might have restocking fees, shipping costs. You might be denied a full refund, and you might get stuck paying some or all of the loan, even if you return the item. And that's not good either, right? So you want to be very clear into what the return policy is. And the last thing is the APR, and this is the annual percentage rate that you're going to be charged. A lot of the time you're going to see that it's 0% APR financing if you pay over a fixed number of installments. Now, life happens, right? So you want to find out, well, what if I cannot pay it back within the allotted time frame? What does the interest rate actually become? Because the APR might be too high at that point. So you want to read that fine print because you might be planning on paying this back in 3 months, but something might come up and you might not be able to. So you want to know what this point of sale loan has in terms of fees if you miss a payment. How flexible are they? Things of that sort. Now, I want you to also consider some alternatives. What are some alternatives to using this point of sale loans? So, for example, say you are going to shop for a large ticket item. You're getting, a mattress, some furniture, things like that. Well, one thing you could do, a lot of us get all these offers sometimes in the mail or an email from our existing credit card providers where they say, hey, we have a 0% APR for 12, 16, 18 months and so on, right? If that's the case, that might be a better option. You might get a longer term, if you manage it right, you could end up paying everything back before the 0% APR finishes. And it's a great way of doing a large purchase without having to pay any interest on it and without having to come up with a large sum of money up front. Now, for smaller purchases, you might just be better off using your existing credit card, especially if you're able to pay it before the end of the cycle. One of the things that I speak with my clients a lot about is what type of credit card might be right for them depending on their lifestyle. So especially now that the people are traveling more, et cetera. If you are somebody that travels a lot, and let's say you happen to have one of those travel rewards cards, this might be a good option for you. You might be able to, instead of doing those point of sale loans, use your existing credit card, get some points, some rewards of some sort, and pay it off before the cycle is over, and you end up not paying any interest anyway, right? As opposed to doing a point of sale loan where you're not really getting any other benefit other than not paying the 0% APR. So you want to make sure that if you could afford it, you play the game right. Sometimes there are things that are necessary evils, like having credit cards, for example. Doesn't mean you need to carry a balance, but they do help build credit over time if you use them properly. So something that you want to, make sure that you take into consideration as an alternative, because the point of sale loan is just one of the options that you can use to finance your venture, right? So just kind of like a small little recap here, things to be on the lookout for is read the fine print, right? Does it impact your credit? Is it a hard inquiry? Is it a soft inquiry? What is the monthly payment? And how many months is it for? Am I really gonna feel happy paying for this sweater 4 months down the line, right? Maybe you want to leave it for something that you're comfortable doing, like a mattress. What is the return policy? What happens if I don't like the item and I give it back? Do I have to pay back some interest? Do I have to pay all of it, some of the loan, et cetera? Is there a restocking fee, et cetera? What is the APR? Typically zero at the beginning, but what is it if I miss the payment, right? And then last but not least, what are my alternatives? And also look at the overall picture. Am I overextending myself? If I do this too many times, am I buying things that I really cannot afford as a result? So if it's something that you could afford, you might either use the point of sale loan or the credit card, use it to your advantage, rewards, points, etc. But if you find yourself where you're just buying these things and that's your only option is to spread out the payments, then that might be a sign that there might be a bigger issue at hand, where I recommend you speak to a financial planner so that you can get your money working for you. You might have to sit down and do a budget. I know everybody hates the B word, but it's necessary. Companies, governments run on budgets, and so should households, so should we. Budget doesn't mean that you're restricted. It just means that you're employing your dollars. You're making every dollar have a job and have a final destination. So you allocate your funds according to your goals, what you're trying to accomplish, and not just, randomly just hoping for the best, right? So you want to have a plan in place. So thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions, send me an email, luis@onmywaytowealth.com, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to On My Way to Wealth. If you have any questions, please send me an email at luis@onmywaytowealth.com. The information provided here is for information and education purposes only. The opinions expressed herein are solely those of myself, unless otherwise specifically cited. Material presented is believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations are made by my firm or myself about other parties' information or accuracy or completeness. All information or ideas provided should be discussed in detail with a financial advisor, accountant, or legal counsel prior to implementation. Thank you.